definition alone, they're inferior films. Films.
Sequels suck. Sequels suck. Sequels suck.
Films.
Welcome back, movie fans. This is the podcast Sequels Suck, and we brought the band back together. Sean, stop laughing, because we are talking about the 1995 film Under Siege 2: Dark Territory. And they almost brought everyone back, apart from Erica Alanak, and even Gary Busey got a gig in this movie. We just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
Do we know
that
this,
was
Sean?
the greatest pay-for-play ever.
Oh, ridiculous. And Angus
Nailed
looks
it,
like he doesn't
Gary.
know what I'm talking about.
What do you mean I was in the first movie? What are you talking about?
Buttered
Oh, that's
sausages.
that big of a check? Okay. Gotta go rub my
There we
mother
go.
back.
Jeez, yeah, I know. What a nice little payday.
Yeah, right?
I
So-
don't think Gary just would have been like, no, the first one was a boat. This is a train. You don't understand. It's not the same thing.
I could
I
be
don't know why he
different
sounds
on a
like George W.
train.
Bush now. There's a
the
big
same
old
thing.
train.
It's George W.
It's
but
actually not bad.
with crack as well. So
Yeah. You're
Cracking
actually pretty
perspective.
close.
He
I
also
give
has
you that.
perspective. Like, listen to him talk about the universe. He kind of gets it, you know? He's in tune with something.
yeah, they didn't need to write his dialogue in Entourage. That was just it. So what about Die Hard? What about Die Hard? What about Under Siege 2? Tell us about it, guys.
What about Die Hard, Regan? Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. Anyone who listened to the last time the four of us together, which we just worked out ourselves was Joker Folly to do because we all forgot. Most of
months
the
ago.
conversation started leading towards Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. And so the very minute that all four of us were available, we've jumped back on to dive into this film that, I know we all have various relationships to Under Siege 2. I had not watched it since probably high school. So 20 years I'm looking at since I last checked it out. I watched Under Siege and Under Siege 2 back to back on one evening. It was a lovely
night.
evening. I had the house to myself. My kids were out. I ate too much Mexican food. And by halfway through Under Siege 2, I thought that I was having a mental breakdown. I was like, I think I am losing my mind.
I am going to die.
It's
Zolo
an
Jalapenos.
insane film.
Yeah.
It's an insane movie. When did we all come to it? Did we all watch it young? Was this influential on all of our lives? Regan, how were you when you first came to Under Siege 2?
Well, that's the thing. I went into watching it today on Disney Plus, no less, thinking I'd never seen it. Like I knew that, I knew that the subtitle, and I thought that's weird. I don't remember seeing this, and I thought I'd liked Under Siege 1 so much. I'm sure I would have seen it, but then I was like, oh no, I can't remember it. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, some of this is a bit familiar. Like where they look at the naked woman with the satellite at the beginning. I'm like, yeah, that's something a teenage version of me would remember, and all that. And then Casey Ryback said, "Oh, what am I doing? I'm baking a cake." No, what does he do? What's he doing? I'm making a bomb. Like, and I was like, "Oh, now, yeah, I have seen it. Yeah, because that's fucking irritated me then, and it irritates me now." So I have seen it, but it had been wiped clean.
Wow. I thought you were one of the main people arguing we've got to talk about this movie as soon as possible. I felt like you had watched it 3 days since you graduated high school.
No, I was totally negging you. Like I was making you do it, and I was going you know how Arnie convinced Sylvester Stallone to be in Stop on My Mum Will Shoot. It was one of those kind of situations.
Right. You've got a lot to answer for.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Sean,
What about you, Sean? When did you come to this masterpiece of cinema?
When it came out. Because I was already a big fan of Steven Seagal. Like, I probably mentioned it before. I've certainly mentioned it in other podcasts, but, like, I grew up, my dad was a bit of a gym junkie, shall we say, big arms. And, Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of his heroes. So all those 80s muscle men were all they were just in my house. Like, it was not, like, actually in my house, but, like, the movies and they were always there. And every time a new one came out and blah, blah, blah. So we were already watching Steven Seagal films, Hard to Kill, particularly. That was a big one in our house and Under Siege. And I remember being in Glasgow and seeing the poster. I still remember the billboard, not like where big billboards, Steven Seagal, fucking dopey poster hanging off a train with a pistol. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I cannot wait to see this. And of course, like it was too old. It was the rating was too high for me to see it at the time in the cinema. So certainly in the UK, they're much stricter with their rating system over there.
But how old were you? You'd been like
Glasgow?
early teens or
Just
you were
fucking
12.
bash 'em out
You
the
would have
way.
looked 30. Like,
Yeah.
you could have gone right in.
Come on, pump the brakes. Don't be like that, man.
How tall were you at 12? 6 foot?
18 foot, 6 foot 12.
6'8". What's the problem?
Sean keeps getting turned away from cinemas now because they still think he's two kids in a trench coat.
You beat me to it, damn it. You beat me by 1 second.
Actually, because there was a the rating system over there goes universal, which is the same as our G. PG is the same. Then here we have M, which is mature audiences, but it's M and MA, mature and mature
Steven
audiences.
Spielberg's
They're a little bit like, it's like grasping smoke. There's not really. You can go in and see an M-rated movie, no problem, when you're like 12.
Yeah.
When an MA comes out, you can't go see that unless you're 15 or you're
Or
under
with a
15
parent.
in the company of a guardian.
Yeah, it's the same.
And then
Well,
there's
used to be the
R,
same.
which-
Yeah. I don't know if they don't care.
Well, that's
anymore.
what it is here. Yeah. And then there's R, which is hard. You're not allowed to go in unless you're 18. In the UK, they've got U, which is universal, PG. Then they have 12. So all theirs is numbers: 12, 15, and 18, and that's the cutoff. If you're not 12, you do not get in. If you're
What
not
fucking
15,
12-year-old has picture ID? That's
true.
just
I know.
just be like,
I don't know,
"Hey,
right?
guy."
If you're 12, unless you're 12, you don't get in. Unless you're 15, you don't get in. Unless you're 18, you don't get in. And Under Siege 2 was 15, and I was like 12. And there's no chance you're getting in. But I remember in 1992, when Batman Returns came out, that was one of the first 12 rated, because the 12 rated certificate only came out in the early 90s. And Batman Returns was one of the sort of first 12 ratings that came out, and I was only 9 at the time. And my dad snuck me in. My dad took me and he snuck me and pretended I was 12, and I thought I was the fucking tits.
Oh, he snuck you
I
in, did he?
was-
Did he have to, after he shaved your mustache off? Like, what the fuck? What do you mean he snuck you in?
He snuck
could have
me.
snuck him in.
I was only 9. He pretended I was 12, and I was the only kid in the neighborhood that had seen it. And I was fucking maximum sexy pigeon for a day. I was bawling. I was bawling, man.
Why
Like,
isn't there a Seagal movie called Maximum
Maximum
Sexy Pigeon?
Yeah.
Starring
There
Steven
must be.
Seagal.
That's a joke. There's a British comedian. There's a joke. I can't remember his name. Daniel Kitson. It's a Daniel Kitson joke. Maximum sexy pigeon.
I love
You haven't
it.
seen it, you should check it out. It's funny. Anyway.
Incredible.
But yeah,
It should be the
that was
title of this
that was a big
film.
diatribe about. Yeah, I saw it when it came out on video.
Lucky man.
I was going to say, I'll just keep my first time simple and just say it was video. It's funny, Sean mentioned the action heroes that his dad used to watch and stuff, and my dad was very action-centric as well. But the crazy thing was, I always felt like, without him saying it, I felt like he used to hire a lot of Steven Seagal, so I feel like maybe that was more like, I mean, he liked a bit of Schwarzenegger, he loved Stallone, the Rambo movies and that sort of stuff. But I do feel like he loved a good Steven Seagal action film. And
Which one?
He's more of a thinking man. I don't know, just every time...
Your dad or Seagal?
There's not a single cohesive thought in a single
No,
Seagal.
I know what you're saying, but...
Have you?
Sorry.
Your dad must have spent a lot of time drunk if he thinks a Seagal film is a thinking man's action film.
I hope that's not the
I
case.
mean, it's not a Christopher
No.
Nolan film, right?
No.
He's
I
hanging
think it
off the
means
side
it-
of a train, bro.
Like, instead of the muscle-bound
Yes,
kind of guys,
it was
he's
a
always
bit
in
more
sleek and he's
intellectual.
doing a keto and shit.
No, I'm not
yeah.
saying the movie is any more intellectual. I mean more that he's, the whole karate stuff or just
I
his...
jest.
Yeah. And yes, my dad was probably drinking at the time, and that's why he's dead, and he's been dead
Whatever,
for
it
12
was the
years.
80s.
Oh
Did
my
you
God,
say
Gable! Don't fucking. That's so bad. I'm like, that's so bad, dude.
Man, he just
can't
fucking
say that.
dunked on you so hard. That's amazing. Yeah, make a joke about my dad, and then I'll fucking...
Yeah.
No, but
Excellent.
it's funny because
But you should make some jokes about my wife, Sean. Get in. dig up. Dig up.
Oh, that's so not
Oh,
cool,
fuck.
man.
All right, Regan has left
So
the chat.
not cool, man.
Anyway,
Oh, look at that, 10 o'clock already.
It's funny. It's a bit like when I've always liked that transition to Die Hard and having someone that wasn't necessarily muscle bound with Bruce Willis. He was kind of like the smart guy or the smart action hero, and it wasn't all about muscle.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I never had that conversation with Dad, but he always, anytime there was a new Seagal movie that came out on video, my dad was hiring it and watching it. So that's just one thing I just always remember that was Steven Seagal. So I definitely saw Under Siege 2 as soon as it came out on video. And again, like we touched on in our last episode, I have no recollection of it ever being referenced as Dark Territory in Australia, ever. It was just always Under Siege 2. And I have noticed, even I'm pretty sure the DVD I think it's the British version, but even the Dark Territory is sort of a bit of a finer print under the big Under Siege 2, banner. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. And it goes back to something we touched on just before we got on the podcast, is that Matt Reeves, who's now quite famous for Planet of the Apes and Batman movies and stuff, was one of the writers of the original spec script of the Dark Territory.
In the chat, but I didn't know anything about this. So what is the deal? Was he the original screenwriter of the concept?
He wrote the script, which was just called In Dark Territory, and it was the story of this train heist thing. But Casey Ryback was nowhere to be seen. It's like all the Die Hard movies, like they were something else, and then they're like, just put John McClane in it. That's kind of the situation as I understood it. Yeah, but also like Dark Territory. That could be the name of the dude's biography now, if you know what I'm saying. But it's just for a very, very different reason, because Steven Seagal is a fucking monster. Let's just put that on Front Street.
He's a horrible man.
Absolute savage.
Absolutely out of his fucking mind.
Yeah. Oh, he's that. And also, you got to remember as well. Like, think about, you said this when we were talking, Sean. He just kind of appeared fully formed. Under Siege was only his fifth movie that he made. It was like Nico, Mark for Death, Hard to Kill, another one that I can't remember, and then Under Siege, and then
Under Siege was his fourth.
It was a force, but that's all I'm saying. Like, to go, like, talk about meteoric. Like, of course he was fucking nuts. You know, Hollywood fucked him up.
And it's a bizarre thing, because if you go back, and again, all those muscle guys of the 80s, they always get a lot of flack and blah, 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 blah. But the one thing that most of them had, if they had nothing else, was if they didn't have acting chops, they certainly had charisma, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger, oozing charisma. Not a great actor. Sylvester Stallone can be a great actor, has a little bit of charisma. Even Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's got the cheeky Belgian, the sexy fucking dancing, all that kind of stuff, a little bit of charisma. Steven Seagal doesn't have charisma or acting chops, and his martial arts prowess isn't particularly impressive.
Nah.
But for some reason, this guy got to like the top echelons of the action heroes, not just of the 80s and 90s, but arguably of all time. Like, he's in that fucking core group of the muscle men action heroes. It's weird. He's such a weird career, man. I don't understand. I don't know. He must have been a fucking great negotiator, or whatever the case may be. Like, he was
There was a bit of that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Well, I have a theory about him, and
obviously
it's part of what you were mentioning off mic in the chat, Sean, about the way that he sort of presents himself as this Zen master, mythical man. And I think there's a reason why, like, early in his career, he's super, like, Nico, Hard to Kill, Mark for Death, Out for Justice, Under Siege.
Out for Justice.
Like,
bam.
It's this meteoric rise, like you said, where he is this huge action star. And it's like, wow, this Seagal guy, almost as soon as he's like the guy, he makes On Deadly Ground, and everyone's like, oh no. And then he kind of hangs around with Under Siege 2. Like, obviously, he's like, I got to go back to the well. Executive decision, he's basically not in. That was a red herring. Then The Glimmer Man, but that really wasn't his movie in the end. That was Keenan Ivory Wayne's movie.
I'm thinking,
not
what's
quite
the DMX one?
The DMX one comes way down the line. That's Exit Wounds.
Right.
But really, like, after Under Siege,
that was his last swan. That was his swan song of cinema.
It's sort of over for him, and I think the reason is because the mystery is gone. Like, he comes out, he's like, I'm living in the mountains, and I know how to breathe like the wind and move like the sun. And everyone's like, this fucking guy's cool. And he has a couple movies, and like, he's doing like cool shit. That's not Arnie. That's not like Willis. That's something totally different. And then we get 5 movies in, they're like, oh, hang on a second. Is this guy just a fucking moron? Did we all get tricked? And then we like everyone leaned in a bit closer. It's like, say that again. He's like, I'm a jiu-jitsu part Navajo. My dad was Irish, and it was like, oh, you're just fucking insane. And we thought that that was wisdom. And immediately, the veneer was gone. Everyone looked behind the curtain. They're like, you don't have any power. And the wizard was fucking out. Like, it was over.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Yeah,
Because he has a
that's
few
He-
movies
he
of
was-
like
he-
hanging
he's-
around, but then like he's literally like Fire Down Below. No one cared about The Patriot. Remember The Patriot? No. Eggs.
Do you know the
Wounds?
Patriot? Do you know the Patriot's most? Do you know what the most impressive thing about the Patriot?
He plays a doctor.
Came out
and
the same
someone
year as
let
the
him
Mel
play a
Gibson one?
doctor.
No. Have you got the IMDb up just now, Angus?
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at who directed the Patriot.
The Patriot was directed by
What a drum roll.
Dean Semler. Dean Semler, who
Oh, hey, buddy.
is a director of photography on Dances of Wolves, Apocalypto, Mad Max 2,
Dean
Dead
Semler,
Calm.
he's one of the greatest cinematographers that ever lived. He's Australian.
Yeah.
Won an Academy Award for Dances with Wolves, amongst other things. He's directed 2 films in his entire career. The first being 1998 disaster action film called Firestorm, starring Kitty,
Fuck.
starring Howie Long, an ex-football player. And then the second one he directed was The Patriot, and he had such a fucking miserable time dealing with Steven Seagal, he never directed another film again. Went
Wow.
back to being a cinematographer. Seriously, that's the
Yeah,
story.
and both of them were in 1998.
Yep.
And I've seen Firestorm. Firestorm is better than The Patriot. Firestorm is
Fucking
fine.
love Firestorm. Firestorm's one
Firestorm
of my
rules, man.
Firestorm's one of my fucking guilty pleasures. I
Yeah.
reckon since 1998, I reckon I watched that film fucking a dozen times at least. I love it. It's so stupid.
Does that have a sequel we can do?
No, I wish. No.
Maybe we can retcon so that it is the sequel. But like seriously,
Back to
after
Firestorm.
Under Siege, and like maybe if you want to Under Siege 2, which is only 3 years after Under Siege, his career is gone. Like he's hanging around with
Basically, yeah.
director videos. But I don't know, has anyone seen his last feature film, 2019's Beyond the Law?
Yeah. If you have to ask, have you seen this Steven Seagal film? I'm telling you now, I've seen.
Is it not one
I've
of
seen
the
them all.
saddest things ever committed to celluloid?
It's
Like
so bad.
he's so large, he can barely move.
He can
He's barely in the movie.
He needs seriously. He's so fat. He's so fat. I think I said it last time. He's so fat. He needs a stunt double to roll under a fence. It's
Yeah.
fucking crazy. He's huge.
And I think his big fight scene, he like does like one block and then just pulls out a gun and shoots the guy. Because it's like
Oh,
he obviously
it's
looked at the
miserable.
choreography and was like,
So I
no.
think that was DMX's last film as well, wasn't it? That was the last film he made before he died.
Beyond the Law, really?
Yeah, the
So
fact
was-
that Steven Seagal outlived DMX is fucked.
You are absolutely correct. Yeah,
I
DMX
am.
is in that.
DMX did not look healthy in it.
No, that's
No, he was pretty sick.
Yeah,
he's not a well man.
Whether it was sick physically or sick psychologically, it doesn't look well. I don't know. But look, I mean, even this, yeah.
I was just going to say about Seagal. He reminds me not in his like massive weight gain, and we're not talking about like fat shaming anyone here. It was unhealthy what happened to him, and
yeah.
what was
Yeah.
it was also unhealthy what happened to Brando, and that's what he reminds me of.
Yeah.
Except he didn't have any of the acting chops of Brando, but he also didn't have the contempt for the profession of acting that Brando had. He actually thought like he was quite good at it, you know what I mean? Whereas Brando thought it was a joke. But yeah, I was watching that documentary Lost Soul about Richard Starking's, like the version
Family,
of Moreau that was going to be
Yeah,
made
Island of
until
Dr.
Frankenheimer came in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. And just thinking that, and then knowing that we were going to do this, I was like, wow, they're kind of on the same path there, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
Do you know, fun fact, off the topic, just on the island of Dr. Moreau, because that was shot up in Queensland.
Yep.
I know one of the grips, and I know one of the makeup artists on it, and they met on the film, and they're married now.
That's
Oh,
cool.
And
wow.
I used to run a restaurant in Brighton, and they used to be regulars. I'd see them every day. And I remember saying to him, like, where did you guys meet? And he goes, oh, you know, I'm the Dr. Moreau. And I'm like, I goes, you guys on that? And he goes, oh yeah. And I said, Mick, tell me. And this was before Lost Souls, the documentary came out. And it was already a notorious film.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, dude, his name's Mick. I was like, Mick, tell me, was it as bad as they say? And he goes, you have no idea. You have no idea.
Just a
He says,
bacchanal of
he says that
shit.
fucking set was out of control. out of control.
If that man
If
was
it was-
smart, he would have just like every time he walked in, be like, "If dinner's on you, I've got a little something to tell you," and just
Yeah.
like drip feed you stories about that movie until the.
Some of the
I did notice you
some
say
of
I
the-
used to run a restaurant, so did that fucking place go under because you just gave him
No.
free
I just stopped working there. No. Mate,
Free
some of the
meals for
stories that
Island of
Mick told
Dr.
me-
Moreau alum. Tell me your stories.
Yeah, your
Come get a
restaurant
cheese.
became the island of
Some
Dr.
of the
Moreau because all
stories
the
that
people
he
came in
fucking
and just
told
turned into
me-
this fucking orgy.
Some of the stories that Mick told me were wild, man. He's like, he's a grip, and every major Hollywood production would come to Australia, he would work on it. So he did all the way back to like The Matrix, Superman Returns, the Star Wars films, fucking
yeah.
King Kong, Pirates of the Caribbean, fucking you name it. If it was a big Hollywood production, it was here. He did it, and I asked him, I quizzed him one day, and I goes, who was the biggest arsehole that you ever dealt with? And he goes,
Don't say Keanu. Don't say Keanu.
no, he didn't. He goes, Jason Statham, because he worked with him on The Killer Elite. And I was like, oh, like, how bad is it? He says, he's a dick. He'd walk around set, he'd be pissed off because Robert De Niro's gun was bigger than his. And he'd walk around set saying things like, this is a case of supply and demand. I demand it, you fucking supply it. And I was like, oof, unreal. I goes, who is the dumbest person you ever work with? He goes, Jared Butler. I goes, really? Because I got really disappointed. I was like, oh, I thought he'd be the local kid that made good. And he goes, Jared Butler. He says, lovely guy. He says, but not very bright. Not
Dumb
very
as a
bright
bucket
at
of
all.
shrimp, is he? Yeah. American
I
Mike.
goes, who was the person that you're surprised still as a career? And he goes, oh, Bryan Singer. I goes, really? And he goes, mate, he is protected from on high. He'd show up
Does
to
he
the
still have a
set.
career? I thought he was out.
Not
and
anymore.
over.
I think this is
Not
before
anymore.
all that,
This
yeah.
is 10 years ago.
Right.
And he goes, he would show up to set whenever the fuck he wanted. He'd leave whenever the fuck he wanted. Sometimes he'd show up on the set with young boys. He goes, yeah, he says he is protected from on high. And I goes, who is the absolute worst person? Now, bear in mind, this was 10 years ago, longer probably. I goes, who was the absolute worst person that you had to work with? And he goes, didn't actually work with this person, but I worked with her husband. And I goes, oh, I knew exactly what he was going to say. And he goes, when I was doing Pirates of the Caribbean and I was working with Johnny Depp, he goes, his wife, Amber Heard, would show up. He says, and all the crew members would be whispering, fuck, the cunt's coming, the cunt's coming, the cunt's coming.
Jesus.
He said, and she would show up, he says, and she was fucking horrible. And then, like 7 years later, all this Johnny Depp, Amber Heard stuff hit the news. And I was just like, everybody's like, no, fucking poor Amber. I'm like, nah, I know the fucking stories. She's an arsehole, apparently. Like, I
Yeah.
totally believed everything that happened. Anyway, that was a complete non sequitur. Sorry.
That's all right. We love
Entertain
Hollywood.
you.
No, it's not because you're
Tales
talking
here.
about like who is horrible, who is dumb, who shouldn't have a career, and the answer to all of those are Steven Seagal every time. It just so happened that he didn't work with him.
I mean, Katherine Heigl's not supposed to be great to work with either. There's a lot of shit
well,
right there
yes.
too.
You know,
supposed
one
to
of the
be-
first notes that I made when I was watching this movie is this film has a murderer's row of great character actors. Everyone in the credits is awesome, and also Katherine Heigl is here. But she's actually pretty good in this movie.
She's
Like,
great.
That was
She's
a
really
preemptive
good, yeah.
strike. She was
Bouncy and
good as
buoyant.
like
and,
the sassy teen who doesn't have much to do.
Buoyant.
yeah, well,
She's
she's
buoyant,
not
is
exactly. She's not exactly like fucking reaching the depths of like. She's
No.
got that kind of smarmy, kind of fun, bubbly, cheeky teen, 90s teen. Double denim.
But then Morris Chestnut's trying to chestnut. You know what I mean? Like he's really into her, and it's a bit. She's a bit young for that, don't you think? I don't know. It
I
was weird.
completely agree. It was weird.
Yeah.
It was
It was the moment
timing.
where she said,
Um,
she's like, what are they looking for? And she's like this, and she's like, they're looking for me, because they've obviously figured it out that I'm related to him somehow. That was the moment when I was like, yeah, that's a decent performance. Like she wasn't phoning it in.
No.
Everyone in this movie, it's worth noting, like, I'll say everyone, 90% of the people in this movie are a person that comes on screen and go, oh, fucking that guy. Like, it is the that guy movie of all time.
Oh,
Dale
yeah.
Dye, like, he's back as Captain Garza. Oh, that guy, he's back again. Kurtwood Smith is in this movie.
Kurtwood Smith, yep.
You've got Royce, what's his name? Royce D. Applegate, who's like the chef at Casey's Kitchen, who kind of looks a bit like Brendan Gleeson. I was like, is that? No, it isn't. And then I realized he's that
Brendan
guy from a
Gleeson's
bunch of
stunt
other
double.
stuff. Jonathan Banks, who everyone
Yeah.
knows from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad now. We also have, you said Morris Chestnut is in there. Everett McGill from Twin Peaks shows up as like an ultimate badass.
And the dad in People Under the Stairs.
And the dad in People Under the Stairs.
My God.
And Eric Bogosian is the big bad, I guess, of the film. And every
Brenda
single one of
Bach.
these actors. And who?
Brenda Bach.
Oh, Brenda Bach.
She was the girlfriend.
And
She was
Peter
one of my
Green.
90s She was one of my 90s crushes. And Peter Green. What
Yes.
happened to Peter Green, man?
Yeah.
What happened
yes,
to Peter
Jesus.
Green?
He got shot in the first episode of Justified, and that was it. We'll see you later.
He did get shot in the
Yeah.
first, and that's a great opening scene to a show.
Yeah, right.
When he dials it in, he can be so good. Like, has anybody 2 or 3 years before Under Siege 2, he was in a film called Clean Shaven, where he played a guy with schizophrenia.
I've seen that movie.
Trying to get his daughter back. And he directed by a guy called Lodge Kerrigan, who's a supreme talent. He did another one called Keen, which was fucking fantastic as well. But Clean Shaven, Peter Green just absolutely nails that fucking role. He kills it.
He was good in The Mask.
Yes.
And then
He's
heroin
before.
got the better of him.
I feel like he was
Again,
also a bit
heroin
market
addict.
corrected, like by Peter Stormare. Like if you want a that guy type of character actor,
Yeah.
and you can get Peter Stormare, you're going to get Peter Stormare before you get Peter Green, and they kind of do the same thing, like menacing, slightly lanky, vaguely not any distinct country that they're from. That you can just place them as like they could be from anywhere in a movie, and you're like, yes.
Smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
Taking names.
Peter Green also in The Bounty Hunter with your mate Jared Butler, just to bring it back. There you go. See,
Yeah,
it
he
all
was
comes
as
around,
well.
mate. It all comes around.
Somebody at work told me that they came in and I had to serve them and they didn't know what my name was. So they emailed the boss and they're just like, oh, lovely police officer, help me. I don't know what his name was, but he looked like Jared Butler. I fucking swear to God, my boss emailed me, they forwarded me, he's gone, Jared fucking Butler. And I'm like, I'll take it.
Well, not the Jared Butler from 300, surely.
Yes,
Yeah,
don't
Body
ruin
when
this for him.
Adonis, you fucking...
Take the shirt
talking
off.
about?
Take the shirt off. Don't tease. There's no teasing in this
tease.
podcast. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I get James
no,
McAvoy all the time.
I can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's the
maybe.
beard and the hair.
I watched The Swimming Pool last night, which is a fucking horrific, ridiculous European slasher thing set in
Is that
Prague.
from like early 2000s?
Oh shit!
James
yeah,
McAvoy,
I know what you're
Island
talking about,
Fisher.
yeah.
Yeah,
I thought about that film recently, and I have no idea why. It just came up.
Yeah.
don't think about it. Don't watch it.
No, I reckon. Did
I
that
think
come
there was a
up?
lot of old art.
I feel like that came up in my subconscious recently too. It must have been on Netflix or one of those streaming.
It's up for
services.
free on YouTube if anyone really wants to dive in. It's
I'm
not.
gonna have to.
No pun intended.
Can
Well
we?
done.
We can't talk about this movie, can we?
It has a sequel. Also, Swimming Pool has a sequel. Dark
Trying
Territory.
desperately not to speak about Dark
to
Territory.
bring it home, Dark
Yeah.
Territory, I am almost convinced that the probably 3 times in this film they actually say the words Dark Territory are dubbed in after the fact because it bears nothing on the plot in any way except for at one point someone's like, oh, we need to use our phone, and they're like, oh, we can't, we're coming into Dark Territory, and someone goes, what's that? And they go, oh, there's no reception here, and they go, oh, we're in Dark Territory, and that's like it, but you never see their mouths say the words.
I'm
And
going to
I-
use
maybe
that
there was
every
something
time I'm at a fucking underground car park.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's like something in the contract of when the original script was bought. So like you can change shit, you can do stuff, but you have to keep the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I can't think of any other reason why this goddamn movie is called Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. Like, why isn't it called Space Laser Boom? Like, I forgot this movie was about a we haven't talked about that at all. This movie starts in outer fucking space.
Yeah, right.
Like, after the brilliance
The
of the
shuttle
first
launch.
one,
Yeah.
being almost
Dump the
entirely
shark.
located on a ship. Like, save for like one moment where you see the shore at the end, which I know we're talking about the sequel, but why in God's name is Erica Lenac in a military uniform at the funeral at the end? She's not a fucking Navy person. She's just a stripper. Why did they give her a uniform? Suddenly
She's on the
in
way to
Navy?
work.
Casey
She's on the way to a
gave
fetish
away.
night. Yeah.
Like, is that how it works now? If you're on a Navy ship for more than an hour, they're like, fuck, they're in the Navy. Give me a uniform.
You
They
should
passed.
ask her.
Yeah,
I will.
Sean didn't actually work at that restaurant. He was just fucking around there all the time. They're like, "You've been here too long, chef."
Here's
You
an
know?
apron.
Yeah, exactly.
But in the sequel, it makes no sense that we're talking about anything other than the fact that it starts in outer space, which was my first like red flag. I was like, this is not good. Why are we in space? I don't want that. Like the whole thing that made Under Siege work is it was contained. It was a contained like bottle thriller. They were stuck on the ship. They couldn't get off. We're on the ship with them. That's what's happening. And this one's like anytime they run out of things to do on a train, which happens quickly because it's a train. And just little note to writers everywhere, a train is not a ship and is not as big or fun as a ship. Also, ships have cannons and helipads.
But it's funny you say this
levels.
because I remember Speed was on a bus and a train, and then the sequel was on a ship, and that was really boring. Really
That's true.
Oh my God. They flipped the formula and somehow they ruined it.
Yeah.
That's...
No, but I totally hear what you're saying. I think it's...
And also the space settings, the death knell. Anytime, we all know this, anytime something goes to space, we're fucked. We're
Jason
done,
X.
except Jason X. You shut your horn.
No, I love Jason X. I love Jason X.
Jason X. I was one of the 6 people that saw that in the cinema, and I fucking love it.
No, I think I was there. I waved to you. I mean,
Anyway.
any movie that impales David Cronenberg is a movie that I want to see.
I think we should once we finish this episode, I think we should put a timer in Cable that resets every time we start talking about another movie that isn't Doctor. If we get past 30 seconds, I'll be stunned. I'll be absolutely stunned. Just keeps fucking reset.
And Sean's, you're the fucking instigator, man. It's not the rest of us.
You're a
Every time
Seagalologist.
Sean's like, let's
I
talk
am a
about all the
Seagalologist.
Hollywood I
Man,
know.
I've even read books on Steven. Swear to God, books on Steven Seagal. There's a book on Steven Seagal written by the guy who runs fucking what's his name? He's a movie reviewer, an online movie reviewer. And he's just got he's just got a one word name.
Pitoff.
Fuck.
Oh no, that's the guy who
No.
directed Catwoman.
That's the guy who directed Catwoman. He's an ex-cinematographer as well.
Yes.
No, and the film, the book is called Seagalology, believe it or not. And it starts at the beginning of his, and it goes all the way through all of his film. I've read it. I've got it on my Kindle. It's actually it's actually a really good book. Fuck off. It's really good book.
Sitting there going, you know, he was a cunt forever. For just the whole time, he was a cunt.
Forever.
Maybe we'll say that to the end because, I went down the rabbit hole of Steven Seagal, obviously, recently as well, watching all these movies and stuff. And it's like, I didn't realise he was such a prick. And, I mean, I know some stories didn't come out straight away, but, geez, he's not a good person. But we'll come back to that. So space and satellites.
Ding.
Space and satellite.
The idea, just to make sure I'm clear on this, the idea of the satellite in this movie is that it can cause earthquakes. Is that right?
Because you never see it. You never see what it does. You only see on the thing, like on
stuff
the
just blows up. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. On the
but it can
screens.
also create earthquakes in midair. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it doesn't
I
create
think isn't it just like it forces
Earth is
a
a
tremor?
fundamental part of that word.
Well, doesn't no, yeah.
Like, does it
You
just
can't cause an earthquake in the air. That's an earthquake.
Well, it's just a quake. It's a quiver.
Yeah.
It's a wobble.
Yeah.
It's a
It got
queef.
windy.
I
think-
call
I
it
think-
turbulence for a plane, but anyway, that's
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It just causes. It can cause seismic
Turbulence,
events,
good
or it can
film.
cause a fucking plane to blow up. Whichever one
Don't
you
get
like.
distracted, Sean.
I'm on track.
In terms of body count, because of the fact that they blow up the factory in China and everyone on the train dies except for Seagal and his niece and probably Morris Chestnut. And they also blow up that plane midair. Is this like really high on the one-man action hero death count tally?
Huge body count. Yeah.
Must be
Like in
not.
terms of like these, one man against the odds movies, if you're thinking like your Die Hards, your Commandos, all of the classics, this would have to be really high up for just the
It
blink
might,
of an
yeah,
eye.
I think so.
There goes, 600 people. We just killed them with a laser quake,
Yeah.
an air quake.
Regan is actually Googling it right now.
I'm having a look. Yeah.
He's doing the math. My other question is, what in God's name is going on in Steven Seagal's backpack? Is he in Creed? What is that backpack? Like the
Yeah,
leather
right.
backpack with the big cross and the flap? I thought when he was first carrying it, I was like, oh, why does he have his niece's backpack? He hasn't caught up with her yet. That's just his backpack.
He's got to have his tablet in there and a few other bits and pieces.
A giant teddy bear.
Samurai sword. Yeah.
Okay.
There is.
I've got it for you if you want.
I do want.
They've literally itemized it as well. Like it tells you who it is, and it includes his brother who dies at the beginning of the film. Like we don't see that happen.
Yeah.
James A. Ryback killed in a plane crash off screen, but mentioned is included in the death count, and it also includes Casey and James's parents killed in a plane crash off screen mentioned. So it's like fucking everybody. Including all the people who were killed by the terrorists or by Ryback, like man to man. That's including all that, but it also includes the 3,000 unnamed people blown up in China, and the people on the plane. So the estimate is pretty tight: 3,052.
3,052 people get killed in Under Siege 2 Dark Territory.
That's a 9/11. That's a fucking 9/11, everybody, and they don't talk about it.
And this movie ends with like people cheering and hugging.
Yeah,
like no one is worried or sad.
Ryback's on this train. Why is he on this fucking train? Yes, and they know it's going to work out all right.
I also love that movie.
Yeah, go.
I was going to say, like, with the satellite that we start with that causes all these deaths, infinity $1 billion and decades of research, and the first thing they do is turn into perverts and look at titties. Like, that is the second it's online. They're like, it's online. This guy's like, all right. It just fucking zooms in.
Everybody in the office is okay with it. They're just like,
as soon as I saw that guy, though, I was like, he was like part of, Revenge of the Nerds, like Poindexter or something like that. I'm like, he's totally off that. Walk from that movie to this one, I was like,
They were shooting in adjacent sound stages. Yeah.
I think like the boss's response when they look at the tits is he just goes, "My God, it does really work." Like he's not even like, "Oh, come on, guys!" Like,
my God, we could shoot those tits. Like it's. Oh, there's actually a little bit later when he kills the guy after the woman's been in the bathroom. She's like, "My bra broke," and then Casey kills him. He's like, "Tits to die for." Like some titties in this movie is pretty, plot heavy.
That's him trying to get like some Schwarzenegger lines going. Get a little catchphrase in each movie. I reckon.
Although that being said, can I put this out there, and I'm likely to get shot down for this, but like on a scale of 0 to Steven Seagal, that first 10 or 15 minutes when Steven Seagal shows up to the train station, he meets his niece, and he's being fucking cute, and he gives him I reckon that might be some of the best work Steven Seagal's ever done. Like in terms of like being an actor, like being like he's extended his emotional range to 3 emotions: hungry, thirsty, and tired.
Which one is he when he's talking to her?
He's thirsty. But before that, like his entire career has just been thirsty and tired. And now he's extended himself in that fifth part. And I want to take a second to appreciate that. Because
I think his best work is when he's in the coma in Hard to Kill. I think that's some of the best acting you ever see.
Yeah.
Is he a bigger one-man show in this film than Under Siege? Because watching these movies, I realised, shit, I haven't watched Under Siege for a long time too, and I was like, I forgot he got a lot of help towards the end. Like, again, he orchestrated and delegated.
He literally gets saved by Erica Eleniak. Like, she saves him.
And it was kind of like, oh, hang on. I always felt like it was just like him almost right the way through saving the day. Like, no, he had some good help along the way, but whereas this one, I do feel like, we have Morris, but I still feel like in this film,
but Morris feels like he's just walked in from another fucking film entirely.
Yeah,
it's like he's literally just walked in from another set and found himself on a fucking train. He's just like, I'm just gonna run with this. Yeah, like it's weird, and none of it feels. It doesn't feel. Jeff Murphy, the director of Under Siege 2, he's a New Zealand guy. And he's one of those sort of workman like dudes. Like he's never done anything.
A lot of sequels.
A lot of sequels. A lot of Free Jack and Fortress 2. Like nothing of any particular note. And it shows so much because I mean we've talked about the cast of Under Siege 2, but when you compare to what came before, like obviously Under Siege 2 cannot be without Under Siege, and Under Siege just leaves it in the dirt. Andrew Davis as a director, not just of like action and all that, But everything else, it goes, tempo and mood and pacing and all that kind of stuff. He just knocks Jeff Murphy out of the water. The supporting cast in Under Siege 1, like nobody in Under Siege or Under Siege 2 comes close to Tommy Lee Jones in Under
It's
Siege
his
Part
movie,
1.
that first one.
It's his movie. He
Might be,
fucking
yeah.
owns it,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And it's no surprise then that he should then re-team with Andrew Davis a year later and then make The
And win an
Fugitive,
Academy
which
Award.
got him a
yeah.
fucking Oscar, right? Gary Busey, and like there's just Under Siege 1, and then when you see Under Siege 2, you're just like, this is just like, it just feels piecemeal. It just feels like a cash grab. Like everything is just half cost. Like, what a stupid idea.
Well,
Let's fucking
The costumes in this
satellite
movie
the
look like they're
causes-
from a high school play.
Yes.
Like
They do.
everyone's
They
costumes,
do. Everyone's costume,
everybody,
particularly
is
anybody
dressed.
on the train.
how much
It's almost like they cast the actors and like, have you got anything at home you can bring? And they'll just show them like, I got this, and like, that'll do. Like the mercenaries, all of them look like they just
Black
grab
t-shirt,
shit
yeah.
off the floor on the way out the door.
Yeah, there's no uniformity. Like they're not all black tactical or whatever.
Yeah,
I
but
just
they're
want to
not
say
even,
quickly
like,
as well,
red guys.
Sean.
To fight.
Yeah.
Like
just
Everett's fucking leather jacket. It's like, you can't move in that, champ. And he's also really attached to it. He's like, you got my jacket. And I'm like, mate, you can't throw a punch in it. You can't lift your arms above your elbows. What are you
you're a
talking about?
T-Rex. Yeah. Yeah, Sean. Just if you can, don't mention Gary Busey's name again, because I think if we do it one more time, we're going to unlock a fucking curse, or he's going to turn up or something. I don't.
He's behind you.
Hi there.
If you say his name one more time, you're
Butter
legally
sausages.
obliged to name
Wanna
your
talk
child
about
after
butter
him. I think that's
sausages?
how it works.
Well,
What are they
Angus,
doing
have you
while
got
they're
IMDb open there?
I do, yeah. What do you
What,
mean?
what,
I don't
was,
like
what,
jam.
what was the budget for
I
this
like
film?
honey.
The budget
Kiss
for
it
Under
on the
Siege 2.
lips.
All right. Let's
I know that's AI generated that thing, but fuck, it makes me laugh.
Genius.
Sorry.
Genius.
Sorry. What are we talking about? Reset.
No, just budget. Because
Yeah.
that was the last thing I wanted to talk about. Because I do think, like, when you talk about the costumes, I hadn't even thought about that too much, but there's definitely some, when they come to explosions and stuff like that, like, it looks like very practical effects and the car off the cliff and, okay, they're spending some money, but then some of the special effects, when he's hanging off the cliff, I'm like, oh, that's clearly a miniature below him. It just looks so shit.
the budget
And
of
even
this
some of
movie
the
was
cliff face,
60 million
I'm like,
US dollars.
So how much?
60.
60 million US dollars in 1994 they would have been filming it. So 1994 money.
That's
Wow.
considerable.
That's got to be 200 with inflation minimum.
It pulled in $50 million in the US and
It's not
54
bad.
international. So the rest of the world is to blame for this movie making its money back.
Yeah, but they wanted to
Damn it,
make it
China.
good. They still, admittedly, I think they were talking about the third before this one had even finished. Like, they were talking about doing, again, going back to what we said earlier about this being a spec script, just an action film, whatever, that they repurposed for Under Siege 2. They're already looking at spec scripts for the third film already before this one had been finished. So I guess Under Siege 3 became dead in the water once, people didn't like this film.
That would have been a good title. Under Siege 3, Dead in the Water. And there's no boat.
No. The best title would have been Under the Siege.
Under the Siege.
Oh,
Or Over Siege.
Angus, you're on fire.
Because he's really
Over
fat,
Siege.
you see.
The
I want to
second
come back to
question
that
comes
and
up.
say and
Yeah,
ask
the
you
special
guys
effects,
what your
yeah.
pitch for 3 would be, though. Like, if
Oh,
you
that's a
would-
good one.
to finish up, I think that'd be interesting.
The number 2 question that comes up on Google when you search anything Under Siege is Under Siege 2 better than 1? And the number 1 answer that comes up is the story is tighter, the concept is better, the villains are better contrast, therefore number 2 is better than number 1.
What?
Which is just an insane number 1 answer to have to that insane question. I don't know why so many people are asking.
Fucking AI.
like, I've seen Under Siege 2 a couple of times in the last 30 years, right? It's it's anything from the sort of 90s, mid 90s to late 90s, right? I've got no problem sticking it on and watching it, guilty pleasure, whatever, right? I've seen Under Siege 2 a couple of times. I even watched Under Siege 2 the day after we recorded our Joker 2 podcast. I sent you guys the screenshot of the title card. So that was what, 2 months ago, maybe? Even now, I'm struggling to remember things about that film.
I can tell you one
haven't
thing
seen
that I'll
Under-
never forget. Some of the military guys are literally wearing gardening gloves. If you what they are actually like they somehow they didn't have the budget for any kind of gloves, and they're literally wearing gardening gloves. It's absurd.
But if they
guarantee
spent
you will forget about it.
if they spent 60 million, there must have been some mafia type fucking under the
All
table.
Seagal's
Steven
movies.
Seagal's part of the mafia.
Well, I was going to say, laundering money because 60 million was not spent on that film. There's no way. If, like you said, if they're wearing gardening gloves, come on.
Eric Bogosian's not that expensive.
I know you
Put
talked
that in
about
perspective.
Seagal.
Yeah.
I know you talked about Seagal unlocking an extra emotion and being not bad in the scene where he first meets
Third
Katherine
one,
Heigl.
yeah.
He's not bad at that. When he talks about his brother being dead, it is some of the worst acting ever committed to. Like it is atrociously bad.
It's not
He
great.
can't emote at all. He can't he's like, my brother died and I always thought we'd have a chance to talk again and then we didn't, and sometimes you don't get a chance to talk again and now he's dead. Now I'm gonna make a cake. And then they just let him in the kitchen, by the way. He's just allowed they don't know who he is. They don't know that he saved people on a boat. They don't know that he's a
Everybody
military
knows
man.
him. He's a famous chef like Gordon Ramsay.
He's just allowed in the kitchen, and everyone's just staring at him like, this guy's cool. Like, what the fuck is going on that train?
It's weird.
What are you holding?
It's my little mic stand.
Oh, you're really
helps me,
articulating it.
like-
And I'm like,
I thought
what
he
is
had
that?
Thor's hammer.
I thought it was a gavel, like he's, so. Order!
It makes me
This
so
fucking
mad.
podcast is going off the rails.
Again.
Again, yeah.
To say that Under Siege 2 is a pedestrian film is to damn it with faint praise. Like it is such a pedestrian. It is such a pedestrian. And like I say that as somebody who's seen it like probably in 30 years a half dozen times. It's such a pedestrian film. It really doesn't surprise me that this is where the franchise finished. Like it really doesn't. Despite the numbers, the numbers that it brought in was modest at best.
Yes.
But like Steven Seagal, since then, I mean, he's made fucking probably 25 films since then, and the budgets of them are, some of them are considerable. Like for what they are, $20 million budgets and shit like that. Like even by today's standards, you're like that's a lot of buck for somebody that really has. The world has moved on past him. Like he's
not a-
almost faded into irrelevance.
Yeah, he's not a box office draw. Like people aren't
Not
lining
in
up
the
around the block
slightest.
to go, yeah.
No, I
Not
think
the
even
same.
when he was at his peak, like he was more of a VHS guy. Like I think people
Probably.
who like Seagal, like I had an uncle who loved Seagal and had his own like home copies of all the Steven Seagal movies.
That
And I would
sounds
go-
more sinister than I think you meant it to.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, home
Seagal sent
copies
them-
from the
yeah,
dungeon.
Seagal sent them himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had these movies of Steven Seagal just practicing karate in a garage and then looking straight to camera and going, "You like that, don't you, little bitch?" And then doing, like, yeah, home copies.
Is that what your dad got, Cable? Because
No, not quite. Not quite.
No, not-
His
He didn't
dad's
get the
fucking
home
dead,
copies.
Regan.
But you,
I
like,
said, did he get that? Like, I didn't do it in the present tense. I do want to ask you a question though, Cable. When like you were watching these and you were aware of them because of your dad, where was your cutoff? Like, where did you stop watching his stuff? Because I probably would have been.
No, I would say the last film I remember watching was Under Siege 2, and I probably just wasn't passionate enough about. Well, I mean, I would have seen other bits and pieces, but I don't think I really sat thinking I'm going to sit down and watch a Steven Seagal movie. Like, I really want to watch this. Like, I was probably at that point where 95, I'm 15, 16, I'm going out, I was still playing football and stuff. Like, I'm not sitting down and watch a Steven Seagal film if I don't give a fuck about it, Then, but I felt like Dad was still hiring and they were still getting churned out, whether they were straight to video or not, and Dad would hire them, and maybe I'd watch one of them with him or something. I wasn't, I couldn't even name the titles, most of them,
Yeah, well, I don't think you could if you.
What was the one that you would have done after Under Siege 2 that was sort of in the Arctic?
On Deadly Ground, which
On Deadly
Oh,
Ground.
yeah, I remember on
Directorial.
But I
that
think
was his directorial debut.
I'm
That
almost
was
certain
before
On
Under
Deadly
Siege
Ground
2.
came out in Australia after Under Siege 2, and in Australia at least went direct to VHS.
Yes, no, I would have.
Really?
I reckon that would have been
And that
about
was
the same time. Yeah,
and I
would've
remember
seen that.
like that was the first time I remember reading reviews in newspapers and people being like, "Ugh, Seagal is over. This movie." It's like it's actually one of the first movies I can remember thinking when I saw the cover in the video store. Oh, I've heard this movie sucks. Like I'd never,
Really?
I was 1994. I was still in primary school, and I'd never, connected that all movies were good movies as far as I was aware. Like if you could watch a movie, that movie was good. And like,
It was
why
a
would a movie be
simpler
bad?
time.
It's cool. Look, there's shit blowing up, or there's people fighting, or there's a cartoon dragon singing. Like, who gives a shit? It's cool. And it's one of the first ones I remember going to the video store and seeing the cover and being like, oh, I've heard this movie is bad. And then after a couple of years, I was like, I want to see it. And then rented it and went home and put it on. I was like, this movie is bad. I was right to think that.
Do you know, I haven't watched it in an eon. I haven't
Don't.
watched it in an
Don't.
eon.
The ending is incomprehensible. Like, you can't figure
Yeah.
out what's going on. It doesn't make any sense. I did
But see,
watch The
here's the-
Glimmer Man a lot. I bought that on VHS because it was like at
I
a
like The
local op shop. And I bought it and like watched it heaps. And then years later, I was like, oh, Glimmer Man, I'll revisit that. And I put it on. I was like, why the fuck did I watch The Glimmer Man so much? This isn't good.
Yeah.
But he does have the
But see,
karate.
here's the
Ginsu
thing, right?
Credit card.
Despite how bad on Deadly Ground is, I have much more recollection, and I haven't seen it in fucking 10, 12 years. I've got more recollection of on Deadly Ground than I do of Under Siege 2 that I watched 8 weeks ago. Like that opening sequence where the oil geyser's on fire and he steps in with a shield to save it, or when he makes a little thing and the woman says, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm just going to reach out and touch somebody," and fucking thing blows up. And Michael Caine going bananas.
Michael Caine is in this movie.
Yeah.
Michael Caine's in it. Yeah, he's the bad guy. Or
Sven Thorson is in this movie.
The lesson that Steven Seagal teaches the guy who's been nasty to all the Native Americans in the pub at the beginning.
Yeah, I remember
Like
that.
he plays the hand game with them, and he gets to punch him. And like I remember so much of On Deadly Ground. I haven't seen it in a decade. I watched Under Siege 2 a couple of weeks ago, and I barely remember a thing about it.
Do you remember that John C. McGinley, R. Lee Emery, and
Yes,
Billy Bob
because he
Thornton
was
are
wearing
also
the
in On Deadly
sunglasses.
Ground?
In the helicopter, with the rifle.
Jeez, I want to watch this again now.
I want to watch it again as well.
Well, can I just
It'll
quickly?
be any regret, guys. It's
I
like
know-
when you have a memory and you're like, oh man, I remember when I drank 13 beers at the pub and then had 5 tequila shots. That was the best night ever. And you'll go out and you'll have 13 shots and 5 tequila shots, 13 beers and 5 tequila shots, and you're like, oh, I'm going to die.
And
I
then you wake up
immediately
to
regret
it.
this decision. This is horrible. Why did I
wake-
come back to this?
Wake up 2 weeks later in hospital.
That's what happens when you watch On
going
Deadly
back
Ground.
to relive
That was
the
good.
Steven Seagal, I guess, peak era. I bought that box set and I said, guess the 5 movies, and we did a little bit of guess the 5 movies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Does it still surprise you? Like, because I watched Executive Decision the other night.
It's hard to say. It is.
Wow. Anyway, he actually lasts a lot longer in the movie than I remembered. I remember thinking he died very quickly. He does last 43
45, 50 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, 43 minutes
Really?
into the movie. 43 minutes
It
into
takes
the
him
movie.
that long to get on the fucking plane.
Yeah, exactly. But if you looked at screen time and just the operation, it was still a big deal for him to die so sort of quickly. Like, wow, it was almost
Huge.
like Drew Barrymore in Scream a bit. It was just like, would never expected him to die so quickly and be the leader.
Yep.
You expect anyway. I just like I still can't believe you've got a box set of Steven Seagal. Surely there's another movie. I wouldn't say better than the Executive Decision, but more Steven Seagal than the Executive.
Well, remind us,
Decision.
what's in the box set that you bought?
Well, Under Siege 1 and 2.
Executive
jeez.
Decision?
Executive Decision.
And there was a random one that you were like,
Nico and jeez.
There was one that we all missed, but we all guessed wrong.
Art to Kill, Art for Justice,
On Deadly Ground,
On
Exit
Deadly Ground,
Wounds.
It's not-
Exit Wounds.
Glimmer Man, Fire Down Below,
I'm just scrolling through. No, I think it was before. Oh, jeez.
Half Past Dead.
No.
It kind of makes more sense to have you know,
Him and Morris Chestnut
Nico
reuniting that one, by the
in a
way.
Kurt
They
Russell
did.
box set, really. Like, it's just...
Well, the crazy thing is, Kurt Russell is the one that's the most built. He's on the poster, and Steven Seagal is
Steven Seagal's on the poster as well.
They're either side.
not
Like,
all
it's
of
the
them.
half face.
Nah,
not the poster we got here in Australia.
Not the main one.
Yeah,
Not the original, nah.
No, I'll show you.
There is another version I've
Okay.
seen with Steven Seagal on it, but yeah.
No
shit.
fucking way.
That's the Australian one.
Yeah.
What? Cut
Yeah,
that
we
shit.
love
but
Kurt
even
Russell
when,
in Australia.
even when you go through the credits and all that, it's Kurt Russell, blah, 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 Halle Berry, and then it says, and right at the end, it's like, and guest star Steven Seagal or whatever, you know, it's not.
Do you know, I remember my dad saying to me, because my dad took me to see Executive Decision in the cinema, and I remember my dad
It's child
whispered
abuse.
to me.
Absolutely.
Always
That's
said that.
disgusting. You guys do it wrong in Glaswegians.
I did it in Frankston, by the way.
Same shit.
But I remember my dad whispering to me, he goes, "Oh, this is the first film Steven Seagal dies in." And I
Oh,
was
come
like,
on, Dad.
What? Like,
Fucking spoilers, champ.
oh, that was after the film.
Okay, great. That's all right.
Yeah. But I remember thinking he's never died in a film before.
Well,
Just
I
keep
mean,
he
the
doesn't
film
again.
every single time.
He commits suicide in Machete, and that's like he hasn't died in
That's
one of his
true,
movies
yeah.
since. That's it.
I remember feeling
Must-
the same
I
way
must
about
ask you
Bruce Willis
something.
in Armageddon. When Bruce Willis died at the end of Armageddon,
Oh
spoilers,
man,
I was like,
cried like a hungry, angry baby.
hang on a fucking second. Bruce Willis can't die. He's Bruce Willis. There's no way he died and that soft boy Ben Affleck lived. What the fuck is this? And like
With
I
his
was,
wall of perfect white
I
teeth.
walked out of that movie in a daze, being like, I cannot believe, especially because this was in like peak Bayhem. And like, if fucking Nicolas Cage is on the poster of a Michael Bay movie, he's the hero he lives. If Sean Connery is on the poster of a fucking Michael Bay movie, he's the hero he lives. If Bruce Willis is on the poster of the movie, he lives. No. Like, stunned me to my core. Reset the clock.
Well, I want to ask
What
a
were you going
question
to say,
though.
Regan?
Yeah, it's about Executive Decision. On the poster, the tagline, so like the log line for it is 5 miles above the earth, an elite team of 6 men. Does that 6 men include Steven Seagal? Have a think for me, because I haven't seen the movie in a long time.
No, I don't think it actually does.
Because there's 6 men on the poster down the bottom there. You can see them. I don't know which one Seagal might be. I know one of them is John Leguizamo, probably the little guy,
Oh, yeah.
probably the little one.
Probably the little guy.
But yeah, I was just wondering.
He was one of the first
Poor
people to
John.
come out and speak against Steven Seagal, like before everyone else was like, because on the film Executive Decision, Seagal like got all the actors together and was like, all right, we're a military unit and we're going to behave like a military unit. And John Leguizamo laughed and he was like, we're actors. And he like shirt fronted him and smacked him against the wall. He was like, when I give orders, you obey them. And John Leguizamo was like, fuck off. And like hated him. And was like, I knew I was probably going to get fired because I was nobody on that film and he was Steven Seagal. But I was like, I'm not fucking marching around pretending that I'm in the army with you, you psychopath. And was
Imagine
talking
if
about
Steven
this
Seagal
like
did that to you, though.
immediately after the movie was wrapped. Like he straight away was like,
Love
fuck this guy. Like,
And this is the guy that made The
wild.
Pest. My goodness.
God, I love John Leguizamo. He was
He's
like
fantastic.
5'0" and still he was like, fuck you, I'll fight you, Steven Seagal. I don't give a shit. I'm from the Bronx. Let's go.
I was going to say, yeah, he's gets plenty of piss and vinegar. Why did Steven Seagal shirt front you? He'd be like, get your fucking hands off me, tons of fun. What
Oh,
the
I'd have
fuck?
diarrhea. I would immediately have diarrhea. Like I couldn't. The guy's from another planet. I don't know what he's going to do.
He's the real deal, though. Like, he was the first Westerner to have a dojo in Japan.
Yeah. Well, they think. Doesn't someone think he's a deity?
Yeah, somebody thinks he's some fucking
Is it him?
reincarnation of the Buddha or something.
Yeah.
Is it
yeah.
him that thinks he's a deity and tells people?
Well, there's so
All right,
many
we gotta get back
apocryphal
to Undersea
tales
State.
about him because they he goes around and buys stories off people and gets, and that's why his history's so muddled. But there was one that they on the set of Glimmer Man. He was in his trailer for ages and ages and ages, couldn't get him to come out. And when he did come out, he said to everyone, "I've just read the best script I've ever read." And I wrote it. Like, it's just, it's like, come on, man. Are you trying this hard? Like, I don't know.
I just read the bigger script.
So the five
Who wrote it? I
movies,
did.
getting back to the box set, it was Under Siege, Under Siege 2, Hard to Kill, Nico Above the Law, and Executive Decision. Surely they could have nudged Executive Decision out for something else.
Anything else?
Executive Decision's probably the fucking best film. Outside of Under
Oh,
Siege, Executive
it's a
Decision's
good
the best
film.
on that fucking list.
It's a very good film. Again, I don't know if you guys were in video shops back then, but I remember that being a big deal when that came to video as well.
No, I would have been a bit young then.
I remember
But I mean, you
that
couldn't
being
find two more disparate actors in that genre. Steven Seagal and Kurt Russell, one high energy, and the other one a brick. You know, like it's just.
But I mean, you forget. I mean, Steven Seagal, honestly, in the early '90s, mid '90s, I remember Steven Seagal was a big fucking deal. Like he wasn't a lazy, but he's become a parody of himself, and he's become a laughing stock, and he's become, you know, the guy that everybody pokes fun at, and you know has a but when he showed up, man, late '80s, early '90s, through to just about the mid '90s, the guy was a fucking titan. He was huge. So the idea that he showed up in Executive Decision wasn't particularly far-fetched, because when did that come out? 96?
90. Yeah, it was like straight after.
96, 97? Like that wasn't like he was still riding high. He was on the downward trajectory. Fucking Seagal was a titan in the 90s. He was huge. And like Angus says, fairly quickly, 95, 96, 97, people
It was
started.
over. The Glimmer Man was
it was
his
basically over.
last
When-
actual success, I think.
No, that's not true, because Exit Wounds was the first one to hit. When Exit Wounds came out, it hit #1 at the American box office. It was the #1 film in America. And again,
Is that because of him or because
I
of DMX?
No, yeah, it's because X going to give it to you.
I don't know,
so-
because I remember my dad saying that again. My dad saying to me, "You guys got to get my dad on this fucking show." I remember my dad saying to me,
Is he alive?
"Oh yeah,
Sorry. What a prick. What a prick. Sorry, guys. That was some low-hanging fruit. Anyway.
My old man said to me, he goes, I remember him
Sorry.
saying to me,
It's all right, Regan. My dad walked out when I was 2, so you know we can.
Oh my god! Oh fucking hell! When's your book coming out? Jesus Christ! Oh, okay. What are you trying to say, Sean?
I was gonna say, I remember my dad saying to me, "Oh, do you see Steven Seagal's new films at #1 at the box office?" I remember looking at him, and he goes, "Yeah, no, didn't see that coming," because it was this weird upward blip. Under Exit Wounds, that was 2001, something like that. Yeah. And then after that, it's just been all downhill. It's all been DTV. Like it's been that being said,
and the TV show that he did where he was deputized.
He's done 2 TV shows.
It was
He's
2.
done 2 TV shows.
Were they
Well, no,
both sort of reality shows?
No, the first one was reality, where he was walking around. He's just like, "Oh yeah, like I'm a law enforcement.
I'm a marshal.
Law enforcement. I'm a marshal."
You fucking
the other one was called True Justice. True Justice was called, and it lasted a fair whack of episodes. But it was a weird one because some episodes were standalone 45 minutes, but most of them were like double episodes. So when they were released on DVD, all the distributors released the 2 episodes as a TV movie, which is why his fucking filmography is huge.
Yeah, right.
This
Okay.
is the poster for True Justice.
That's it. Yeah. And that's where he ended up.
So
Terminator movie?
I'll put it in post.
One of the
Yeah, good call.
One of the directors of True Justice was a guy called Keone Waxman, who again, he's one of those journeymans. Like he's been kicking around Hollywood forever, screenwriter, director, blah blah blah. But Seagal and Keone Waxman got on like a fucking house on fire, and since then, Keone Waxman's directed outside of True Justice. Keone Waxman's directed like 8 Steven Seagal films, because he obviously has enough nous to understand. Oh, if I get $6 million to make a Steven Seagal film, even if this fat cunt doesn't show up for most of it, I'll shoot around him and use body doubles and voiceovers, and I just keep making movies. And they're such low budget that the risk is minimal. Like Keone Waxman makes so many films with Steven Seagal, it's weird. Don't ask
Contract
me
to Kill, Cartels, End of a Gun, Absolution, A Good Man, Force of Execution, True Justice, Maximum Conviction, A Dangerous Man, and these are all back to back to back to back to back. This is like, if you look at Keone Waxman's IMDb filmography, there's nothing in between the Seagal movies. He's just fucking chain smoking Seagal.
Yeah. It's weird, man. And if you see Keone Waxman, actually, I think did Keone Waxman? No, I don't think. No, I'm thinking of Manny Cotto. There's a guy called Manny Cotto who anyway, it's beside the point. But like, yeah.
How do you keep all this in your head and all of the lore as well. Like, I don't understand, man. Like, there's so much shit in there, and
Hey,
also
he's
all
got
of
a
the
Kindle.
lore.
None of it makes any.
He
None of
reads
it
it on
makes
a
any
Kindle.
fucking sense.
What's
Nobody
it? He's
makes
got a
it
little
doesn't.
Kindle.
It doesn't make any sense because the shit that I know. Is there any reason why I know Keone Waxman directed all these episodes of like? There's no reason I should know that.
None.
There's no reason I should
None.
know that.
No.
Nobody needs to know that. I know it. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know what. I don't know where it gets fucking stored in the fucking nugget in the back of my head, but it's there.
I don't
and
even
can't
think
get
I don't
rid
even
of it.
think Keone Waxman knows his filmography as well as you do. He's like, what the fuck did I do?
There's definitely a Google alert that he has set up on his name. Now, when this episode airs and the transcript goes up on the podcast places, he's going to be like, hang on, what? What are they saying about me? He's going to be like,
Oh, we got
shit,
to
this-
hashtag this, don't we?
this guy knows
Yeah.
everything about me.
Just at him on Instagram. He'll be there.
I follow him.
Have you noticed that
He's not particularly active.
you know there's a new funny
No shit. Sorry, Cable, what's
there's
that?
a new funny thing with YouTube that anyone that gets mentioned in a podcast, once you upload it, it finds everyone that you've ever mentioned and will actually put them down in the bottom of your podcast, so it actually tells people who you've actually mentioned.
That's
Oh
weird.
shit, Seagal's going to kill all of us.
Yeah.
I know. This cunt's talking shit about me.
In the
Yeah.
last episode I did with the podcast Assemble guys that you've been on the show with, Angus, I talked about Osama bin Laden. Do you reckon they tagged him? I don't know if he's going to get
Don't
it.
know. Don't know.
There's a good chance.
If you're worried about Osama bin Laden coming to get you, I've got some unfortunate news for you, Regan.
Why? What happened? Did they do a fucking Megatron on him? My goodness.
Have you ever heard of SEAL Team 6? Let me tell you a tale.
Have you seen Zero Dark 30? Because you might want to.
That's actually government misinformation. How they got him was there's a satellite orbiting planet Earth, and they shot his compound, created an earthquake.
Way to
in the
bring it
Earth.
all back.
You like that?
And Eric Bogosian.
And my work here is done. Ta-ta.
Good night. And
Eric
Sean's bouncing
Bogosian,
from
who,
the
by the way, we haven't talked enough about on this episode because he
We
is
have
one of the
not.
genuinely amazing things about this film.
He's the best
Like,
thing in it for sure.
He rivals Tommy Lee Jones for like insane villain in
Yeah.
the Under Siege films. Like, I'm not saying he wins, but it is
Yeah.
not like a
He's
knockout.
giving that crack. Yeah.
There is a conversation to be had before you reach a conclusion where you're like, I don't know, man. Some of his scenes, like he is pretty. Like Tommy Lee Jones is crazy in a delightful way. Eric Bogosian is evil in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's ready to burn the eye out of the couple
Yeah.
just for fun, and he's disappointed when he doesn't. And then he just like gleefully blows up a passenger airplane of civilians.
Yeah, but for
Like Tommy Lee
100
Jones is
million,
taking out like military targets until the very end, obviously, when he's like, now I'm going to blow up Hawaii. But he starts out with like, I'm going to blow up military targets until you give me what I want.
But he doesn't
Bogosian's
get
like, I'm killing everyone.
Yeah, he doesn't get the script
3,052 people he kills.
Yeah, 3,057 or whatever it was. Yeah, like
You've
I
got to
said,
consider him as one of the all-time fucking badass bad guys. That's
at least being that successful. But he doesn't get as good a script as Tommy Lee Jones got. Like,
and he
the
certainly doesn't get as good
scene
at death.
Where the scene where Tommy Lee Jones says, that's why I call it a revolution. It keeps coming back around in your face. You tried to kill me, you son of a bitch. So welcome to the revolution. Like that's. And he just eats there's no chairs left in the room. There's no awnings. There's nothing. It's just,
it's
he's
beautiful.
eaten the whole lot. I fucking love Tommy. He's fantastic. And then after that, he did, by the time he did Men in Black, and then he just started doing those old man mumble roles.
Yeah.
It was like Under Siege and playing Two-Face, and he was completely wild. And then all of a sudden he's fucking No Country for Old Men mumbling his way through the whole thing.
It's because he didn't care for Jim Carrey's shenanigans.
Who did?
I don't care for Jim Carrey shenanigans.
Shots fired.
Or the
Wow.
fact that he got $20 million for that picture.
Yeah, because Jack Nicholson told him to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't know if I want to do this stupid shit. And Jack Nicholson was like, do it and get paid. And he was like, all right.
Okay, well, you're going to be working overtime putting these fucking timers in, mate. But back to Bogosian, like he's like how Bogosian. Well, we mentioned it. I can't remember if we mentioned it before the podcast or during the podcast. But he's an incredible screenwriter. Talk Radio. If anybody hasn't seen Talk Radio, I mean, Talk Radio. It's not the most Oliver Stone of Oliver Stone films, but it has that Oliver Stone velocity and power, and there's just this constant fucking drive and momentum. And Eric Bogosian does this incredible monologue when he's talking into the microphone and blah, 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 blah. And the guy is unbelievable. He's a great screenwriter. He's a great actor when he's given the right material, which then begs the question, what was the fucking appeal to show up in a retrofitted script starring as the bad guy? I can only imagine that it's money. It can only be money.
It has to be. He's
Can
like
only-
I said
there's
before.
he's doing the best with what he's got, but this is not talk radio. He knows what a good script is. He knows what a good bad guy is. It must just be the money. It must
3
be
weeks
the
work, 1.5 mil. I can take 18 months off to write my next play. Let's do it.
Must be.
And I'm gonna
Must
put some
be.
fucking ham on it as well. You know.
And also, I think the opportunity to like really like have a good time. He's having a good time. He
He's
doesn't have to
having
deal
a
with
good
Seagal
time.
much at all because they don't face off until the end. So most of the time, he's like hanging out with Everett
That's
McGill,
true.
who seems like a fucking legend. I would love to hang out with Everett McGill for 3 weeks on a pretend train. Like that'd be
Did
fun.
I ever tell you about the time my mate bumped into
If you say Everett McGill, I'm gonna shit in my pants. I'm gonna be so happy.
not Everett McGill, fucking Hellboy? What's his name?
Oh, Ron Perlman.
Well,
The
my mate bumped into-
Rumpelman.
My mate bumped into Ron Perlman in a bar in New York, and then just ended up in the toilet doing racks of coke with him. That's a story
You
for
have
another
not
day.
told
We'll
me
tell you
about
later.
that. And that sounds.
I've
I'll
never
tell you
seen
later.
an Easter Island head do coke. I want to be involved in that. That guy is.
Yeah, did your friend get any? Because I feel like one.
Yeah,
bump
but
is
he, but
all
my,
of
but
it
my,
for
but
Ron.
my, but my mate just spent all the time just like, oh man, like I love your films and love like. And apparently, Ron Perlman was just like, yeah, just rack it up. Like,
He was the
apparently.
only cast member from Transformers Beast Wars who didn't need to be animated. He was just the gorilla and the transforming gorilla.
That
guy is simian.
Said that.
Stone cold proof that we came from monkeys, people. All right, it's
My
what's happening.
God.
He's a beautiful human being, but he is Cro-Mag.
Beautiful,
I
isn't
love
he?
it.
That's generous, isn't it?
No
Beautiful in a special way, you know.
comment. Especially now we know that YouTube tags everyone we talk about.
That's exactly
Love
what
you,
I was
Ron.
thinking.
No
Do
comment.
Hellboy 3 with GDT. Come on, make it happen.
Eric Bogosian really wasn't doing much, honestly, and hasn't done much in the way of like roles and
Not
films.
on screen. Eric Bogosian, not on screen. I'll give
Well,
you that.
that's what I mean in acting roles. So I guess like if you look at what he had been doing, like an episode of Law and Order, an episode of Larry Sanders, a voice in the truly insane The Thief and the Cobbler animated film. If no one's seen it, it's out of this world. You got to check it out. Witch Hunt, which is again out of this world, and you got to check it out if you haven't seen it. Such an incredible
fucking
frigging
good.
movie. Dolores Claiborne, which was a Stephen King book adaptation. Then this, and then really like after this, you know, not much. The movies, The Substance of Fire, Beavis and Butthead Do America, Office Killer, Deconstructing Harry, like one of the least remembered Woody Allen movies ever. A Bright Shining Star. Like I haven't heard of any of this. Safe Men, Beggars and Choosers.
Safe Men was good. Safe Men.
You
was
really
good.
like-
that was a tidy little comedy actually. I quite like that. It wasn't
I
amazing.
don't
but
know.
it was
I don't
good.
know if
Witch
he's
Hunt,
had
the
many
one with,
opportunities to like chew the scenery like he did in
Dennis
this.
Hopper.
Dennis, so it's a sequel to Under the Spell or something
Yeah,
like that.
with,
the other
um,
supernatural.
Oh, I can't remember the guy's
It's
name.
exactly right.
The different actor playing the
with-
character in the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was a
it's,
TV movie.
Fred Ward. It's
Fred
HBO
Ward.
HBO movies, but Witch Hunt was particularly notable because for two reasons. One, it was directed by Paul Schrader.
Yeah.
Like
Yes, it
what
was.
What the fuck?
Dickens?
When he was
Who
out in the
the fuck
wild,
saw
then
that?
he just needed cash. He couldn't get anything
Yeah.
done.
But two, it was always like it was always praised and lamented at the same time. One, praised because it's actually a really good refilm. Nobody's seen it. It's so worth checking out. But two, everybody else
sequel. We
came
should
back
talk
and
about
said, "We should." That is a fucking great idea. But everybody came back and said, "This is just Who Framed Roger Rabbit with magic and not cartoons." And
Kind of.
they're
And?
absolutely correct. As soon as you say that, then you're just like, "Oh my god, that's exactly." what it
And
is. It's Who Framed
it
Roger
works. Is the end of that
It's
sentence.
so
It
good.
fucking
It
works.
does,
There
yeah.
should have been 10 of these movies. I don't know how they only made 2.
So good. It's so disappointing they only made 2.
Like fucking 50s Hollywood gumshoe, and also magic is real.
And Julian Sands is in it. I
And Julian
love
Sands is in and awesome.
Who was going to be the villain? In
supposed
this?
to be
Yeah,
Casey
that's
Ryback.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It said
Look
no.
at the way we bring it all around. You think we don't know what we're talking about, listeners? We know what we're doing.
We're
Get
podcasters.
it all
We live
mapped
this
out up
shit.
here,
Hashtag this pineapple life.
I still can't believe John Peters already signed up Gary Busey to do this. It's
Yeah,
from
without-
not knowing he didn't die.
Before we wrap it up, let's fucking talk about that because
You have
that
to
is a
explain that because
whopping
not
piece of
even I
trivia.
know what you're talking about. So anyone listening to
This
this is
is
going
a
to be
cracker.
completely clueless.
So,
So, Cable, take us through it.
So the story goes, Gary Busey obviously was pretty big in the first one as well. And John Peters, who was a producer, pretty much as soon as they were doing Under Siege 2, signed him up. So he was going to get paid whether he was in it or not. And he was going to be the villain. So somehow I guess he survived the blast and maybe swam to shore or whatever.
Were they going to have it be the
By
same
that.
character, sorry?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Well, I assume so.
I just
And
thought he
then-
fucked up
yeah.
and hired him to be someone else.
And that could be true too.
true
But
as
when Steven Seagal found out, he's like, "There's no fucking way he's coming back. We can't have him as a villain again. There's no way he's playing." And then obviously Steven Seagal put his foot down, and then they had to pay him out. And I don't know what he was on, but I reckon it was a good little paycheck as well.
I think it was somewhere in the region of $500,000 just to
Yeah.
fucking just to have his name
750
mentioned in the conversation. Was it 750?
That's what I saw.
It was a considerable amount of bank for somebody who didn't even know that he was involved in the process.
That's a lot of drugs.
$750,000. That's a big chunk of change, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I
yeah,
can back that up. $750,000 in a pay or play deal.
Yeah.
John Peters signed on. John Peters, who also, if you're wondering why you may have
Wild
potentially
Wild
heard that name, the death of Superman,
Yeah.
the Nicolas Cage Superman, he was involved in that. Is he the same one who tried to get Kevin Smith to write the giant spider
Yes, that's
Superman has no
that's
powers
same
Superman
one.
movies?
That turned up in Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
Hairdresser.
he was Barbara
He's a hairdresser.
Streisand's hairdresser. Yeah.
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 Bizarre.
Is he the one that Shampoo is based on? What's
Yeah.
his
Warren
name?
Beatty film.
Yeah.
Warren Beatty film.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, if anyone's listening, like, why the fuck do I know that name? That's why. He's
He
infamous.
was very funny.
in Hollywood lore.
He got the first Batman movie off the ground too, or he was one of.
Yeah, I think he was one of the.
He
That's
did,
where
yes.
that's where he made his name,
Easily.
wasn't it? That was where
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he
getting
made his
cred.
nut. He got himself set.
It made his nut.
Made his nut. You don't know that
But
expression?
can I just bring one before you guys finish off?
No.
I bring one other thing. It's something I did share with you guys, and it goes to show. When I first started using the internet, and IMDb was the place to go for movie information, there was a reputation it had, and it was always, they obviously filtered through the information, made sure it was true and correct. You couldn't ever be misled. There was not crap in the trivia section. You could just lock and load. You knew, you put your house on, the information was on IMDb. That's not so much the case in the last few years. But I saw, and I know we've paid out Stephen a bit on this episode, but there is a trivia fact that says, during this production, Steven Seagal started wearing a girdle to contain his blubbery stomach. This was apparently a temporary fix as he intended to lose the excess weight eventually. This has not occurred. Like, how is that in the trivia section? Even if that is a true statement, that is...
That's
the best fact on the
2025
internet.
up to date. You know what I mean? Like that is
Yeah.
now.
That is, but even that's like...
What you left out there is at the bottom of that, it says 224 out of 224 people found this interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
The next highest rated fact has 45. Like, people
That's
really
crazy
like
that they
that.
even got listed there.
all
but anyway.
245 of them, they're actually all Reagan. He just signed up to 240.
Fucking separate accounts.
Like every fucking
This is
one.
excellent. That's
This is
how
the
that's how I
best.
do. That's how I like everybody else's podcast. I have to ask just before we jump off, what would be your pitch for 3? And I'm not talking about what it would have been in the 90s or early 2000s. I'm talking right now. If they did it right now, what would
I
it
know
be?
how I would do it.
Lay it on us.
This motherfucker, he can, I mean, like I say, he's so fat he can't even fucking roll under a fence. So the entire film would have to be set inside a car. Just have Steven in the passenger side, dealing with the terrorist sitting right next to him.
Dave,
And
Drive
just for
Angry,
90
they've
minutes.
made movies like
Yeah,
that.
he's an Uber driver, and a terrorist gets into
Yeah.
his Uber, and that's it.
Yeah. And that's
So he's
it.
chef.
That's the whole film.
And now Uber driver. Okay, sure.
Yeah. He's
It's like Cujo, but they just call it Fatso.
Right.
Good. Well done.
That's really good.
My
So
pitch
what would
would
it be
be-
called though? Under Siege 3.
Fatso.
Oh, Under Siege.
Under Siege
car
3,
park.
your driver is here.
Your driver's here.
Under Siege 3, 5 stars, please.
Under Siege 3, surge time.
What about you, Cable?
What about me?
What's your pitch for Under Siege 3?
I thought I was contributing to the last pitch. Look, to be honest, I didn't.
No,
I don't even know. I'm taking it on face value. What Sean's telling me is true and correct. That he's massively overweight. I don't know. It'd have to be something about Under Siege beach whale rolling back in or something. I don't know.
Yeah, good.
Mine's similar to that. It's a Caribbean set. What about Angus?
I'd say set it like in an old people's home, and he's like in an old people's home, and he says like, no, I've seen a movie in a bed, and he can't get out of the bed, and then people come to kill him, and he does like his Aikido from the bed, just in a reclined position, and of course beats them because he's Steven Seagal. You could almost, there's a world in which it could be really fun. You could Bubba Hotep it. Like his big challenge is, it's kind of like the end of the Brendan Fraser film The Whale. Like the end of the film is he gets up out of the bed to fight.
Don't ruin
like,
it. I haven't
boss.
seen The Whale yet. Don't ruin it. I haven't seen
okay.
The Whale
How
yet.
have you, one of the greatest cinemas lovers of all time, not seen one of the best films released in the last 20 years?
I don't know.
Yeah, go watch it. Go watch it.
All right, I'll tell you what. You have my word. I'll watch it tomorrow.
What was the pitch?
What, you know
I
what?
missed it.
The advice I can give you is watch it before you have a kid, because when you are a father and you watch that movie, you will cry harder than you ever have in your life.
Correct.
Get it
What,
out of the
shall I
way
wait?
now.
What
It'll
film was it?
break
Sorry,
you.
Bubba Hotep.
The whale. No, the whale.
Oh,
The
right.
Whale.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
The whale will end you once you have a kid.
Okay, well then, let's just remake The Whale with and
Steven
call it Under the Whale.
Shot
No,
for shot, word for
Under the
word,
Whale.
Yeah.
it's just Steven Seagal instead of Brendan Fraser, and everyone is like, "What is happening?"
We'll get
here's my idea, which is only really the reason.
But we
why I asked
changed it
for
that he's
so-
not. We just changed. He's a bit more touchy feely with the female members when they come in.
Maybe not then. So my one is you know how at the end
and also take off your top and show me your titties.
and then he wheezed. You know how at the end of Split, see those girls and the TV's playing and it's like, and the police are calling him the Horde, and it rolls up. Oh, what was the name of that guy back in the day? And then there's David Dunn from Unbreakable, and he says they called him Mr. Glass, and it was all of a sudden this secret trilogy, sequel to Unbreakable, right?
Yeah.
Here's what it is. It's a film called The Last Resort, and you go there thinking it's called The Last Resort, and it's Katherine Heigl, and she's older now, and she's a Navy SEAL, and she's got to go to this resort where there's, some terrorist nefarious actions going on, and while she's there, opens up this jail cell sort of thing where all the terrorists are putting the people.
I thought you were going to go, yeah.
No, there's
Opens up his
a
shirt.
person, a door,
Yeah.
and a person behind the door, and the person behind the door is Casey Ryback. And then after a 45-minute cold open, you get the title sequence, and it says "Under Siege, Last Resort."
Wow. Can Erica
And then that's where
Leniak
the
be the one who
credits-
owns the resort?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
then
she
I'm in.
can. Yes.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I will
that's
see
they've
it
gotten
opening
together
night.
after the fact. They've gotten together, and and then Under Siege happens, and he too fat. So Katherine Heigl comes in, and isn't Katherine Heigl in one of them Mortal Kombat pictures?
No.
No, she's not
That's
Sonya Blade in the
Bridget-
first
that's-
one.
No, that's Bridget.
Bridget Sampras, she is now.
Bridget
Shit.
Sampras, yeah.
But you see what I'm saying? She could do some gung fu or whatever, and then finds him, and then they've got to do it together, and she has to have him in a
Can I say
wheelbarrow.
you've thought about this a lot more than I did?
I've only been thinking about the
You know
last
what?
10
And
minutes.
it shows.
Yeah.
I know.
His idea
I'm
is
a
really
professional
good.
screenwriter. Thank you very much. This is
Thank you, sir.
going on the
Thank you,
record.
sir.
I'm going to talk to my writing partners about it. We're going to do it.
I'll tell you what.
Do you know what I want to see? Do you know what I want to see you fucking dig out, Regan? I want you to see you dig out that cannibal. Remember those cannibal films that we wrote?
Yeah, man.
You still have that script somewhere?
The cooking show
Jimmy,
parody
yeah,
that I
the
did,
Jimmy,
and he
yeah,
was
yeah,
cooking
yeah.
a person. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Still got it.
You still have
And-
that script kicking around?
Oh man, I've got all my old scripts. Yeah.
Send it through. I'd love to read that.
Yeah, I
I'd
might
love
have
to
to
read that.
reformat it. I don't know what it looks like. It's probably a bit messy, but yeah, no, it was good times. He was cooking a whole human torso with like sweet potatoes and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, and it was like he's pitched it like a Jamie Oliver cooking show.
it was Jamie Oliver, but he was a cannibal. And then while he's cooking, you see a woman like run out the door, and she's like tied up and stuff, and he's got to run after her, and the camera goes with him and shit. Yeah, that would have been really good. I don't know why we didn't do it though. Probably because I was a fucking
Yeah, because
raging alcoholic.
there was two of the three. We made two of the three, didn't we? I made one, and Belinda made one, and
Yeah.
yours never came to fruition.
Yeah, like I said, it was they were the drug years. I don't know a lot of memory going on. I remember the script. I don't remember what happened though. So. Hey, that's all right. Everyone can
Find
talk
it.
about all sorts of things on this show, you know. Come on, whatever. What's some more trauma that we've got? Fuck. That we all had to watch Under Siege 2, basically, yeah.
Maybe for next time.
Yeah, who would have thought that Under Siege 2 would be the film that brings up all of the demons?
I know.
2025, we're modern men. We can talk about our feelings.
That's it. That's Sequel Suck is now a podcast.
Well,
where
let's
we'll
be
cry
honest,
about
like
our past.
I do think Under Siege 2, there's a lot you can sort of talk about, but not really, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what we haven't talked about that I do want to talk about before we wrap up is the very end of the movie where for absolutely no reason they go to her dad's gravesite.
Yes.
Right.
And the song that is playing
I know.
is the worst song choice for a film ever. Like, I think a 12-year-old was the music director on this movie. It is literally a song. The lyrics are about being on a train and your brother being dead. It is the most literal fucking...
being on
the
a
lines are literally
train.
like, riding on the train, it goes
My
off the
brother
track,
dead.
my brother died. And I was like, did they write this for the movie? No, they didn't. They just managed to find a fucking song about trains and
Speaking
dead
of,
brothers.
have you been on Spotify and looked up Steven Seagal?
Yes. Yes.
He's
Does
got
he
an
have a
album
podcast?
called...
No, he's
an
got
album called
albums.
Songs from the... there's only one on Spotify.
Songs from the Crystal
He's
Cave.
released 2 albums, but that's it. Songs from the Crystal Cave. That fucking credit where it's due, right? The lyrics suck and blah blah blah, but boy can shred.
Oh, yeah, he's a pretty good
knows
guitar
his way.
player.
Oops, sorry.
Boy knows his way around the neck of a guitar, like maybe even the neck of an assistant. But like he's that
But
was
does he, or did he just get someone to record it all and then he just pretends?
no.
noodle.
He fucking shreds. He can play guitar. Credit where it's due. He can fucking play guitar.
You know
Sounds
why?
like he can
'Cause
sing
you can
too.
play guitar sitting down.
That's also true.
It's real easy. You just do this.
Apparently, this is one of his songs.
It is.
That's all we're going to do because rights and everything.
Terrible,
But I think
yeah.
that is misappropriating some stuff.
Yeah.
It's also 20 years old.
I'm pretty sure that's the song that has the lyrics in there. It's a reggae song and it has the lyrics in there. Me love da
The
punani.
Punani.
And he sings those lyrics. He didn't get a rapper in to do that. He sings those words.
Amazing.
Yeah, good. So in the 90s, it just seems like anyone was allowed to do anything, and we're all
No
paying
rules.
the price now.
No rules in the 90s.
Yep.
Just
Hey,
go.
There should be a couple of rules.
Jesus Christ. I'm going to have nightmares over that shit. Damn. Under Siege 3, your forehead. He had a before head and an after head. My goodness.
I mean, we have worked this out. Like
I've had-
you're wearing a black T-shirt. You know your way around weapons. You worked in a kitchen. I'm starting to think that maybe
Actually true.
are you?
Well, remember
I
he told
beat
the
off. Are you
story
Steven
about...
Seagal? Sean, you be honest now. Are you Steven Seagal? Are you
What were you
sticking
gonna
in our
say, Regan?
podcast, Steven?
Have you had a lot of work done?
No.
Why you look so good, Steven? What's going on?
Probably got a chunk.
He can't convincingly do a Scottish accent. Steven Seagal. He could barely talk anyway.
barely
I was saying
convince-
to
I was gonna say,
Cable, I
barely
had to
fucking
have
speak
subtitles
English,
on to hear him.
I don't know. Like I've been around a few Scottish guys who just like get so mumbly and grunty, like it's indecipherable. Maybe that's what Steven Seagal's Scottish accent would be. He just talks like
Maybe,
this. He just talks like this. And then hey, very good, man. Hey, being alright. Hey, no, hey, brother.
My brother died in a train. You don't know fucking.
Like you go down the south of Scotland where my family's from, and the accent is just we refuse to enunciate. It's not actually a
It's
dialect or a region. It's a
weird,
closed
yeah.
jaw grunt.
Yeah, it's weird.
So, have we got any final words about this train wreck of a film?
Boom, boom.
This
God, how
train
did it
wreck of
take
an
us that long?
episode.
To get to that.
This might be the greatest episode of a podcast I've ever recorded.
It might be the greatest
said that last
episode of
time.
podcast anyone has ever recorded.
I know, because this keeps getting better and better.
I feel like every time we do a podcast, we find the next podcast that we're doing.
Yeah.
I feel
That's
like
the
if
beauty
we
of
all
it.
die under mysterious circumstances, it's because YouTube fucked us by tagging Steven Seagal and the city came for vengeance.
Yeah, I wonder if you can
One
untag.
by one. One by one, we just fucking
All
disappear.
4 of them died from multiple knife wounds and also being crushed to death.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
all died in extremely localized earthquakes. 4 by 4 feet. Somehow these
Can you imagine?
In areas that never get earthquakes.
in southeastern Victoria somehow.
Yeah. Anybody ever heard of a fucking earthquake in Frankston? They fucking killed this guy.
They killed this,
There's
just
an
the one
earthquake.
dude as
What
well. It was just
guy?
the one
Just
guy.
one guy, yeah.
He was
Fucking
sitting on his
house,
couch watching Witch Hunt, and the fucking thing came in, and boom.
and then a fucking earthquake just ate this guy up. He's gone. Like, I don't know what he's gone.
Have you seen there's a new Steven Seagal movie coming out? Oh, shit. Oh,
I
God.
I don't think
gotta
those
go.
words will
Okay.
ever be spoken again.
I
Much
guess.
love, guys.
What are you going to say, Gus?
I was going to say, this movie aside, remember, not all sequels suck. Hey, sequel suck fans.
My definition alone, there are fewer films.
I almost sequel remake. A quick warning.
Sequels suck.
This episode is spoilers. Before the movie screams over. Crazy.